There's one habit that makes you look older, feel smaller, and disappear faster, and no one's warning you about it. After 65, the world begins to look at you differently. People speak slower around you. They interrupt you more. They assume you're done learning, done contributing, done becoming. But here's the part we don't like to admit. Sometimes we make it worse with our own words. We say things like, "I'm just old," "I'm too much trouble," or "I don't matter anymore." We use humor to soften the discomfort. We make light of our struggles, trying to ease the tension in the room. But in doing so, we slowly shrink, shrinking our presence, our power, our worth. Not just in private moments, but in front of family, friends, caregivers, and ourselves. Because words are not just sound, they're signals. And after 60, 70, or 80, the things you say about yourself in public become more than just conversation. They become instructions. To others on how to treat you, and to yourself on how much space you're allowed to take up in the world. That's why today I want to walk with you through 5 common things older adults should stop saying about themselves in public. Not because they're rude, not because they're embarrassing, but because they quietly chip away at the dignity we've spent a lifetime building. And you, my friend, have earned the right to speak differently now, to hold your space, to be heard, to age with clarity, with strength, with quiet power. This isn't about pretending we're not aging. This is about aging intentionally. This is about choosing words that reflect who we are, not what the world expects us to become. This is life after 70, redefined. This is elderly wisdom, spoken clearly. 1. I'm too old for that. You've probably said it without thinking. I know I have. Someone suggests you try something new, maybe a dance class at the senior center or a new hobby, and you respond with a smile and a phrase that feels harmless. I'm too old for that. But when we say that out loud, even half-jokingly, we do something dangerous. We don't just express hesitation, we broadcast limitation. We silently tell the world, "Don't expect growth from me," and we tell ourselves, "I'm finished evolving." And that simply isn't true. Research from the National Institute on Aging shows that learning new skills, even well into your 70s or 80s, keeps the brain sharp, builds new neural connections, and improves emotional resilience. Your ability to grow doesn't disappear with age. It changes shape. It becomes more intentional, more reflective, but it's still very much alive. I think of my friend Walter, 81, widowed, quiet and kind. For years, he dismissed every invitation with the same line, "I'm too old for that now." Whether it was game night, gardening club, or walks in the park, his answer never changed. But then one day, a volunteer came by offering beginner ukulele lessons. For some reason, Walter said yes. No pressure, no expectations, just curiosity. 3 weeks later, he was sitting at the back of the rec room, strumming simple chords and grinning like a teenager. When I asked him what changed, he said something I'll never forget. "I hadn't learned anything new in 40 years. I forgot how alive it makes you feel." That's when it hit me. So many older adults stop saying yes, not because their bodies can't, but because their words have already told them they shouldn't. We fall into the habit of aging out loud. But the truth is, you don't stop growing because you're old. You start aging faster because you stop growing. If you want to age well, if you care about life after 70, about healthy aging, about staying sharp, engaged, and emotionally full, Then watch how you speak about your own potential. Instead of saying, "I'm too old," try saying, "I've never done that before, but maybe I could." Because wise elders don't stop learning. They grow differently, and in many ways they grow deeper than ever before. That's not just advice for the elderly, it's a mindset shift, a quiet act of resistance against the stereotype of decline. That's what life after 70 can really be, not smaller but richer, not less curious but more deliberate. That's elderly wisdom in action, and it begins in your words. 2. I'm just a burden now. This is one of the most painful things I hear older adults say. You might whisper it after someone helps you up from a chair, or quietly mention it when your children rearrange their schedule to drive you to a doctor's appointment. I'm just a burden now. It doesn't sound dramatic. It sounds humble, even considerate. But in reality, it's one of the most damaging beliefs we can carry into our later years. Because the more you say it, the more you begin to believe that needing help somehow makes you less worthy of being here, and that belief can eat away at your confidence, your joy, even your health. According to a study from Harvard Center for Aging and Care, older adults who believe they are a burden are significantly more likely to suffer from chronic depression, emotional withdrawal, and even slower recovery from illness. This isn't just a feeling, it becomes a physiological truth. I remember a woman named Ruth who moved in with her daughter after a fall. For months, she apologized for everything, using hot water, taking up space, needing help to the bathroom. One day her granddaughter came to her room and said, "Grandma, I love helping you. I don't want you to go back to how things were before." That moment cracked something open. Ruth started telling stories again. She began helping her granddaughter with homework, even if she couldn't walk far. She began to realize that needing help wasn't a failure. It was a bridge to deeper connection. She stopped apologizing and started showing up, not as a burden but as a blessing. You see, life after 70 isn't about measuring your worth by how independent you are. It's about recognizing that your presence, your wisdom, your calm, your experience is still adding value. Even if your body now moves more slowly, you are not a burden. You are the continuity between generations. You are the voice that still steadies the room. Don't ever let need confuse you into thinking you're no longer needed. If you've ever felt this way, or helped someone through it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's one thing someone said or did that reminded you that you still matter? Share it in the comments. Your story might just be the reminder someone else needs today. 3. I'm having a senior moment. We say it almost without thinking. You walk into a room and forget why. You misplace your glasses. You lose your train of thought mid-sentence. I'm having a senior moment, you chuckle. It sounds light. It sounds harmless. But over time, these small phrases become heavy, not just for you, but for the people around you. They begin to associate aging with decline, forgetfulness, and mental fog. And even worse, you start believing it yourself. But here's what the science says. Memory lapses happen at all ages. What changes with age is not the brain's ability, but how we talk to it. In a 2015 study published in Nature Neuroscience, researchers found that older adults who believed their memory was still strong performed significantly better on cognitive tests than those who frequently joked about being forgetful. The takeaway? Your brain listens to your words. It absorbs the labels you give it. And if you constantly feed it the message that it's slowing down, it will eventually agree with you. I once met a retired math professor named Thomas. At 78, he was still sharp, but every time he forgot something, he'd chuckle and say, "That's my senior brain at work." Eventually, he started avoiding complex conversations altogether. He didn't want to embarrass himself. His confidence eroded, not because of actual decline, but because of a story he kept repeating out loud. After some encouragement from his wife, he stopped calling them senior moments and started calling them pauses. Just pauses. And that small shift gave him permission to stay present, not retreat. So the next time you forget something, try this. Smile and say, "It'll come to me." Or even better, say nothing at all. Give yourself space. Because you're not broken, you're just thinking. And your brain deserves to be spoken to like an old friend, not like a fading machine. 4. I'm just lucky to still be here. Gratitude is powerful. It centers us, humbles us, reminds us of the long road we've traveled. And yes, it's true. We should be deeply grateful to have made it to this stage of life. Surviving loss, change, health scares, and still being here to tell the story, that's no small thing. But sometimes, the way we express that gratitude becomes a quiet form of disappearance. When you say, "I'm just lucky to still be here," but follow it with silence, with stepping back, with letting others take the floor, you're not just being modest. You're slowly writing yourself out of the conversation. Gratitude should lift you, not make you smaller. But too often we use it as a shield, protecting ourselves from the fear that our voice no longer matters. We say, "I've done my part," but deep down we still ache to contribute, to be seen. After 65, your presence should not become passive. It should become even more deliberate. Because now, more than ever, you carry what the world lacks: emotional steadiness, wisdom earned through trial, and the ability to see the long view when others get caught in the short game. Research from the Stanford Center on Longevity shows that older adults contribute most powerfully in group settings, not because of their speed, but because of their clarity, empathy, and perspective. These are not minor qualities. In a noisy, reactive world, they are rare and deeply needed. I think of Malcolm, a retired fire chief I had the honor of working with. He was 72 and quietly brilliant. But whenever someone in the room asked for opinions, Malcolm would lean back, smile, and say, "I'm just lucky to be here. You don't need to hear from me." It sounded like humility, but over time I realized he was withholding something far more valuable: experience. Eventually, a younger officer asked him to mentor some new recruits. That small invitation cracked something open. Malcolm began showing up early. He spoke with intention. And when he spoke, the room listened. Because there's something powerful about someone who speaks less, but carries more. So yes, be grateful, but don't use gratitude to shrink from your seat at the table. Instead of saying, "I'm just lucky to still be here," try saying, "I'm proud to still be here, and I still have something to offer." Because your story is still unfolding, and your voice is not background noise. It's part of the music. If someone in your life needs to hear this, needs to be reminded that their presence is not just appreciated, but needed, send this to them. And if you've ever found yourself stepping back when you still had something to give, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your wisdom might be exactly what someone else is waiting for. 5. It doesn't matter anymore, I'm old. Few phrases cut deeper than this one. On the surface, it sounds like acceptance. It sounds like someone who's made peace with life's changes. But underneath, there's something darker: resignation, defeat, a giving up of agency. When you say, "It doesn't matter anymore, I'm old," what you're really saying is, "I've stopped expecting anything meaningful from myself." And that belief, that's what accelerates aging more than any number on a birthday cake. In a 2020 study from the Journal of Gerontology, researchers found that seniors who maintained a sense of purpose, whether through relationships, creativity, spirituality, or learning, had significantly better health outcomes, stronger memory, and even longer lifespans than those who felt their life no longer held meaning. Purpose doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be yours. I once met a man named Carlos, who had been a painter all his life. After turning 80, he packed up his brushes and said, "It doesn't matter anymore. I'm too old to keep painting." For 6 months, he didn't touch a canvas. Then one day, his great-granddaughter asked him to show her how to paint a sunset. Something clicked. The next week, he brought out his brushes again. And not long after, his living room was filled with color. Again. You see, it still matters. Your voice, your expression, your curiosity, they still matter. Maybe you won't build a career from it. Maybe the world won't notice, but your soul will. And at this stage of life, your soul is the only audience that truly counts. So no, don't ever say, "It doesn't matter anymore, I'm old." Say, "It still matters because I'm still here." Because as long as you are, there is still more to feel, to share, and to create. And that's not denial. That's dignity. The world listens to how you talk about yourself. Even when you think no one's paying attention, your children are listening, your caregivers are listening, and perhaps most importantly, your own soul is listening. After 65, it's easy to feel invisible. The world moves fast, and sometimes it moves right past you. But invisibility doesn't begin when others stop seeing you. It begins when you stop speaking like someone who still matters. Because every time you speak with self-doubt, the world reflects it back. And every time you speak with strength, with quiet pride, with the dignity you've earned over decades, the world listens differently. You remind them that aging isn't about disappearing. It's about deepening, refining, becoming more of who you truly are. So speak accordingly. Speak like someone who still belongs in every room they enter, because you do. And if this message stirred something in you, share it with someone you love, someone who may have forgotten that their words still carry weight and that they're not done becoming. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's one thing you've stopped saying about yourself, and one thing you're proud to say now? Your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if you found value here, subscribe to the channel. This is a space for stories, for perspective, and for elderly wisdom that doesn't just honor age, but reclaims it. You still matter. You still belong. You're still becoming.